Travis Wayne Goodsell. Alright. I have a couple other videos that are lesser priority. One is that YouTube is going to be placing church advertisements on my channel. They've sent me the threat notice saying, we have the right to monetize on whoever we want. Yeah, I'd like to see them advertise on my channel, which means they're hoping to promote me, which means give me more views. That's the last thing they want to do. And so we'll see if they actually go through and treat me equally, or if they decide to treat me equally but throw in a grudge, or just not treat me equally at all. Many people who come to my channel are not Mormon. I cater my videos to try to help Mormons out of Mormonism. And Mormons obviously do not accept it. They do not believe that the church is corrupt, deceptive, liars, criminal, etc. I'm the only one who does investigative research on the church. Nobody, not even local news. The church has silenced local news. They won't do it. If you're familiar about Fox 13 News Utah coming out and saying the church raised $6 billion during coronavirus for their Enzyme Peak associates for tithing because of the whistleblower, that's because if you paid attention, they said the church gave them that information. The church only has local news report what they tell them to report. Sound like anybody we know? Sound like anybody you probably don't know but would have guessed that he does it anyway? Putin. Yeah. So even the Salt Lake Tribune has been compromised by the church now. And so there is no investigators other than me. And so last night, broke another bombshell investigative report about the church stabbing China in the back. Oh my goodness. Bad enough that they betrayed Putin, poked the bear, but now they're poking the dragon? Oh boy. And so, those of you who therefore are ex-Mormon or Christian, hoping that I'm going to just trash everything about the church, and if you're Christian especially, that you're hoping that I'm going to promote the Christian Trinity God, you're going to be very disappointed. Now, my channel is not to convince Christians that they're wrong. I don't mess with Christianity. I focus on Mormonism. But because Mormonism claims to be Christian, claims that the gospel's Jesus is their God, I have no choice but to bring up the topic from time to time. And it's not very comfortable for Christians, as it's not comfortable for Mormons. And I get comments from Christian when I talk about Christianity in exact the same manner in which I get comments from Mormons and Christians. If Mormons are wrong in the manner in which they make their comments, take a guess about you. And this is therefore a difficult situation for Christians, as my knowledge of the subject matter is vast. There are people who think they know better than me in their particular field. Mormons think they know better than me in Mormonism, not knowing my history. If I have to explain it, it's no longer a joke. No man knows my history. And so, the subject that we're talking about today is going to likely be long. It's 4:30 right now, and I'm already over 5 minutes into the video. And so I'll outline the process first and hint at the ending. And so, yeah, the topic is on the Mormon God. I am going to expose the fraud of the Gospel's Christian Jesus for Mormons. I'm going to break it wide open, rip it to shreds. And so Christians, if you're thinking that this is going to be good for you, it is necessary to destroy Trinity God and expose at the same time the falsehood of Mormons believing in that same God with their different twist. That's the casualty that the church put Christianity into, to purposely deceive Mormons that they're Christian, so that when people try to find out if the Mormon Christ is fraud, sure enough, not only is it a fraud, so is the Christian God. And this is the church's plan and plot. They intended to have this done, because the church gets to fall back to Joseph Smith and claim religion, whereas Christianity collapses and the Mormon church reigns supreme. And so it's necessary to destroy both at the same time. And then after I've done that, we're going to go into the church's claims of origins. Because once I've trashed Jesus, guess what that means for the church's history? The origin story of Mormonism, with the Book of Mormon, having Jesus appear in the Americas, with the first vision, with priesthood keys, etc. And then Mormon prophets. If Jesus is a fraud and a fake, doesn't exist, and the prophets are getting up and saying, oh yeah, we listen to Jesus, it's his church. Oops. And then finally, yeah, your beliefs. Specifically intended for Mormon audiences, but yeah, Christians likewise have to be thinking about that same concept. What you've believed because of what you've been taught to believe. You didn't actually see Trinity God. You can't. He doesn't exist. You're natural. He's supernatural. And in and of itself indicates it's fake. It's a fraud. You've been conned. And the Mormons likewise are being conned. And so the question is, are you going to stick with the con and the big lie and being deceived and played as a sucker, or are you going to say, enough, I'm out, I want nothing to do with this? And then you got to decide, well, am I going to search for something true, or am I just going to become a heathen and join orgies and commit crimes like the church? No. God. You don't have to stop being a good person just because the churches aren't true. So let's get into trashing on Jesus now that we're about up to 10 minutes here. I've been trying to talk about how the Gospels were not written by the acclaimed authors. Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, no, not the authors. We have no original texts. to support anybody's claim to a theory that they're based on an original document of Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John. And you can't keep that theory because it's automatically wrong. You got to drop it. Got to find another that supports the evidence. And the evidence leads to people who specifically wanted popularity for their gospel. Because if they did it in their name, nobody would be interested. Yeah, whatever, that's your God. But if they use somebody famous, oh yeah, John, he did Revelation. Did he? If you're positive he didn't do the Gospels, and so this was common. We got Gospels of Peter, Thomas, and others that were rejected. Why did they get rejected? That seems strange. Well, that's because of Constantine. Constantine with the Nicene Council in, 330, 325 AD. So we're looking at 100 years after the supposed event of Jesus in the Roman period. Forced all the bishops to gather, or they don't get support for their congregations, financial support. And they had to come up with one faith, one religion, one gospel, one baptism. And that became the Nicene Creed. And they couldn't decide on the nature and character of God. And that was the big one. And nobody could agree on that. And so Constantine, frustrated and angry with them, as it's hot during the summertime, came out and said, your God is now homoousios. He created a Greek word. Never existed before. He just made it up. And so all the scholars that think they know how it's supposed to be translated, as it's called Trinity, are wrong. He made it up. That's why it's referred to as supernatural. He made it up. It doesn't exist. It's not real. And so everything after that had to conform and comply with Trinity God. So Heavenly Father, Jesus, Holy Ghost are one, but not real, but are able to be real if they want it to be. Heavenly Father doesn't have sex, but somehow Mary gets pregnant. And it's immaculately conceived. Supernatural. It gets way off course. And thus the Protestant Revolution, or Reformation, where people were saying, no, this ain't right. I'm going to form my own church based on this one passage of Scripture. And you even have some Christian groups that have YouTube channels that say, Gospel of Jesus of Paul. They try to justify using Paul's records as if it's the Gospel of Jesus. And it's no different. It's like using the name Paul to claim it's Jesus's gospel. No, stop it. And so that's the background history that you need to understand. And so if I were to talk about the Jews, I've been explaining when needed for Mormon context that the Jews have been assimilated by Babylon, and that their Bible, the Hebrew Bible, came out during this same original time period where people were writing apocalyptic literature. Revelation, that's apocalyptic literature. The Gospels are apocalyptic literature. It just doesn't have dragons and all that stuff. It has demons that possess swine. But yeah, the Jews believe that Elohim is a plural majesty. Masculine singular. I wonder where they would have gotten that from. And then you find out that they created that in 800 AD when they started altering the biblical text into one and only one translation by the adding of jots and tittles in violation of the Torah. So Jews are not excused. They were also influenced by Constantine, not just Babylon assimilation. And then Islam. Yeah, I know Islam will want to give me a death threat again. YouTube took down the death threat when they no longer had a spam folder for me. And said that, oh, we're taking it down after 60 days. This was a death threat. But yeah, Islam gets very sensitive when you, who are not Islamic, tell them about the Quran. You know, it's like Mormons get very upset when somebody who's not Mormon tells Mormons about the Book of Mormon. They get pissed. And so, yeah, Allah, translated by those who translate the Quran into English as we, plural majesty, because it comes from El, the Canaanite god, Allah, El, and yet they've turned it into a plural majesty. And it's different than the Jews with Elohim, the plural form of El, but same concept. All comes from Constantine. And Islam got started with Muhammad in 600 AD, 300 years later. So these are the origins that your religion may not be telling you, or you're not making the connection to. It's important contextual information necessary in understanding the origins of your religion. Now, if you want to continue to be Christian, be Jew, be Muslim, okay. Just don't expect anybody else to believe the lies. If you're not going to come out and be honest, oh yeah, we're influenced by Constantine. Oh, we're influenced by Babylon. Great. Fine. Okay. Now we know where you stand. We know you're being honest with us. The church won't be honest with us. Oh, Joseph Smith didn't translate? It was Revelation? Oh, Joseph Smith and his revelation is now a rock in a hat? And eventually they're going to have to come out and confess it was 2 rocks in a hat, and those 2 rocks are the Urim and Thummim, which were supposedly taken by Moroni. Oh wait, it was Nephi? The church has a bigger mess to clean up. So that's just the contextual information that's now taken 9 minutes to go over. In the text itself, in the Gospel's texts, there are multiple birth dates. There are different signs in the heavens that supposedly are in the heavens at the time of his birth. And I won't go over them with you, just understand there are multiple births. You know, you have Luke, shepherds abiding in the field. That ain't Christmas. But again, Constantine was the one who designated all things Jesus. This is the dates for this, and this is where he did it, and those all designated by Constantine. And so that may lend to something I'm coming up with called anachronisms. But just understand there are multiple birth dates. Thus, there are multiple birth years. Not considering that there are birth dates given with a year not in the Roman period, but right now in our latter days. And so, isn't that interesting? Why is that the case? Well, because they're not actual history. They are apocalyptic. Apocalyptic talks about the last days. The last days is very clear because of the signs in the heavens that they all give for right now, 2017 to 2024. That's the latter day period. That's the apocalyptic time frame. And all the stories told are prophecies about the events on earth during that time period. Or they're talking about the signs in the heavens in a manner of a story form. As yesterday, we had the sign in the heaven for Doctrine and Covenants, section 85, verse 7. It's supposed to be verse 8. We're still waiting for that. I gotta sneeze. Maybe, no. Okay. And as I went over with conference, there's also different times for ascension. When did Jesus ascend? 40 days is the traditional practice of the Christians. So how did he then eat and drink with the apostles the same day he was resurrected? Had to be resurrected. Had to ascend. Because not just resurrected, has to ascend. Why? Because of John. Not the others. John screws it all up. Because he talks to his wife, Mary. Yeah, oops, Christians don't like that, do they? But that's what's being indicated there. She's not supposed to be the first one to see a resurrected being in the religion of the Roman period Jews. That's sort of a naughty no-no. I don't know why. I would think that resurrected beings can appear to whoever they want. Nonetheless. And so he says, don't have sex with me. I've not yet ascended. Yeah, sex. Not kissing and hugging. If the Jews are putting know her to refer to sex, when Jesus tells Mary, don't touch me, he's not saying don't touch me, touch me. He's saying don't touch me, touch me. But again, that concept of he has to ascend first is exclusively John's in comparison with the other three. And so that ascension timing is all screwed up. What is it? When is it? And etc. And then, like I mentioned, one of the signs for his birth comes from Isaiah. Matthew talks about it, takes out the word sign, and says, takes out the name of the prophet, doesn't name Isaiah, just says the word of the prophet, and then says that his name is supposed to be Emmanuel, as Isaiah says his name is supposed to be Emmanuel, but then says, oh, they named him Jesus. But anyway, the sign never happened during the Roman period. You can get your own stellarium, check it for yourself. It didn't happen. Because John in Revelation 12 gives us the details of that sign that we're supposed to be looking for. And the Catholic Church has come out and declared that that's just a reminder of the birth of Christ, that there is no future sign in heaven. It's a fake, it's a hoax, fake news. Sorry, astronomy is a hard science, and I went over that in yesterday's video as I'm filming it for you. We know through this science of astronomy the day, the hour, the minute, the second, the month, the week, the year, etc. We're that precise with astronomy. And we even have a calculus physics math formula to confirm that that's the case. That's how you develop theories that can be tested and establish truth. And so, yeah, I and other astronomers already knew it was coming. And lo and behold, just as we all prophesied, it happened. That's how it works. However, the event on Earth still needs to happen. That's a trickier one. And we didn't have an apostle of the church die like all the previous ones before it happened. But I did the video and was going to do another one, but I had some problems, as I then came out and told you about Xfinity. I won't get into that. So we'll see if something happens, but I give it a month. If nothing happens after a month, then this sign was a dead sign. Because the sign happened, we know that, but nothing happened in correspondence with it on Earth. That's what we're looking for. Now, the church does tend to give us 2 weeks before they confess that something happened 2 weeks ago. So we'll see. And so, yeah, the birth sign never happened during the Roman period. That's important to know. There was one sign that did happen during the Roman period that had an impact to this day. It was a total solar eclipse over Russia, so it was seen as a crescent partial eclipse in the Middle East, of which Christianity, Judaism, and Islam all derive from. Notice crescents in all three of those religions? Yeah, Islam calls it a crescent moon. No. It's referring to 8 April 4 AD. Now, this should be curious for Mormons, as Mormons have been fooled into thinking, well, the Doctrine and Covenants is official and trumps the Book of Mormon, because Joseph says that the church was organized in 1830 of the year of our Lord. So 1 AD is when Jesus was born. No signs. 8 April 4 AD. But the Book of Mormon, however, has this little passage that gets carried through about 600 years from the time Lehi left Jerusalem. And they're counting down until those 600 years. There is a moment where the reign of the judges changes the calendar, but they throw it in still, despite the new calendar system. When was 600 years when Lehi left Jerusalem? Well, it was the first year of the reign of King Zedekiah, who was put on the throne by Babylon, a foreign nation. .597 BCE. There's no 0 year, so you have to then add an extra year, 4 AD. But that's not to show that the Book of Mormon is true. that Jesus was born in 4 AD, because that total solar eclipse means death, not birth. It's not a birth sign, it's a death sign. So there's some problems. What are they talking about? Is it a real book or not? We're going to get to that. As I said, even though we're at 30 minutes, like I said, this is going to be a long video. And so now we can talk about anachronisms. Anachronisms are, as a fiction writer, I want to do a period piece. And so I want to talk about the Romans. And so I do my research as best as I can find, and I'm not a scholar in the Roman period per se. I'm just going to write about it and talk about maybe tennis shoes among the Romans. If you're familiar with the children's series, Tennis Shoes Among the Nephites, or even attempt to do it seriously. As an author, if I'm going to be serious, I have to be an expert in the Roman period of which I'm writing a fiction about. Because if I make stuff up, if I'm talking about a period of time and I put in stuff that they're not supposed to have invented yet, that they haven't discovered yet, that they haven't learned to do yet, items that they would not have had yet. And yes, ex-Mormons are going, yeah, like the Book of Mormon, claiming European animals in America. Yeah, exactly. Just like that. That's what's called an anachronism. It's because you're putting details into a specific time period that did not occur until later, more closer to your time period of when you're writing this. And you can see that in the Old Testament, as you see an author saying, and it is that way to this day. Wait a minute, I thought Moses wrote this. No, he didn't. There are anachronisms in the Torah, just as there are anachronisms in the Gospels. And you need to know what's supposed to be during that time period and what's not by knowing when those things were invented and utilized on a regular basis. Because it's one thing to know when it was invented, it's another thing to know when it became in popular use. Because the invention of the light bulb, yeah, we can find the date of when he invented it, but when did the public start using the light bulb in their homes? That's a different timing. And so if you place people using the light bulb immediately after he invents it, oops, you pulled an anachronism. And thus with Trinity God, if you're claiming that the scriptures, the Gospels, are all about Trinity God, and you insist it's not an anachronism, what you are then declaring is that they are not written during the time period, that they are now written after Constantine and the Nicene Council with the Nicene Creed. Because Constantine created him. He did not exist prior to that. He only existed after that. So again, if you're going to claim that the Gospels are not an anachronism, but they're Trinity God, you're now saying that they were written after Constantine. And we know that's not entirely true. There were some written after Constantine, but the various bishops of congregations already had their own Gospels. And each of them had their own nature and character of God. None of them, however, were homoousios. And so, yes, some of them were even that Jesus was a mortal man born of mother and father who were both mortal. That comes from the Jewish concept of the Christ, called the Messiah, incorrectly pronounced in English from the Hebrew. And that's another thing you need to find out about. Because Jehovah's Witness, oh yeah, his name's Jehovah, and we've changed our Bible to show that it's Jehovah the whole way through. And it has to be pronounced Jehovah. There is no other pronunciation. What? Well, the J is a European alteration of the Yod, which is Semitic Hebrew, which is the Y sound, not J sound. You know, in Spanish, for example, the J is an H. Jesus instead of Jesus, instead of Yahashua, which is Hebrew, rather than the Greek, which is altered by the European J for the Y sound. Yeah. Oops. It's those little details that sort of mess things up if your members are going to be on the ball and actually do their research. And when you do research, you tend to expose misinformation and disinformation. And a religion would be wise to base their origins on confessing that, yeah, I'm starting it. I like this kind of Jesus, and so I'm going to name it this way. And so understand that, yes, the previous Jesus of Scriptures is this way, but we're ignoring those Scriptures. I'm creating my own. Sort of help to be honest with people rather than try to deceive people with anachronisms. All right, there are multiple time frames. So birth dates, birth years, ascension timing, now multiple time frames that are mixed around. When did it happen? Well, it said this way, that way. It's similar to ascension in the sense that when was ascension? Well, in this gospel it was then, and in this gospel it was then, and so yeah, time frames for other things as well. And so, for example, Herod dies in 7 BCE, which means the birth of Jesus has to happen before then. You see the problem? And no signs in the heavens there either. You can check. Just understand there is no 0 year. And then, this is where the zeitgeist movement comes in, is that we who were involved in the Zeitgeisters, and I referred to the movie called Zeitgeist, where D.M. Murdoch was the featured usage in that documentary. She was the one who made it popular, and she focused primarily on the Gospels. Gary Greenberg popularized the Old Testament with his 101 Myths of the Bible. I'm not sure if Gary Greenberg is dead yet. He's pretty much out of the picture. I don't fully understand why, because his 101 Myths was a blockbuster seller, major seller. And then Christians came out and said, oh, he has no references, therefore it's all false. It's not the Trinity gospel, therefore it's false. Similar with D.M. Murdoch. How dare you? It's not the Trinity gospel, therefore you're false. Mormons pull this same stunt too. Oh, that's not Mormonism, that's anti-Mormon, therefore it's false. Yeah, that argument doesn't hold any water. You're trying to pull an anachronism. But there are patterns in the stories that the other two, Gary Greenberg and D.M. Murdoch, were not able to fully develop into a theory. That's me. I was there too during the Zeitgeist movement. All three of us did our own separate things, but we were all discovering that same pattern. And those patterns are consistent, not just Abraham and Isaac having a repeated story of meeting a king and then their wives get raped and kidnapped by the king. Not that kind, but that is of that nature. I'm talking about how Samson and Isaac and Jacob are blind. That kind of pattern of in the various stories. And so those are things to pay attention to and notice. And yes, I would recommend paying attention to the patterns in the Book of Mormon, like an Exodus pattern in the Book of Mormon. Nephi has multiple exoduses, and the first one is not even with Nephi. As I illustrated, he was born in the first year of the reign of King Zedekiah when Lehi left Jerusalem and settled at the top of the Red Sea. Nephi's born then. All Mormons miss that. They all want to impose Nephi into that first part where Lehi leaves. 600 years later, Jesus dies in 4 AD, which then creates more problems. But, yeah. And so the other part of the Zeitgeister movement was our discovering not just of the patterns, but that those patterns came from similar Egyptian stories. So like the possession of the evil spirits into swine, yeah, it's all over the 19th dynasty tombs with Seti and Ramses 1, 2, and 3. They had that carved into their tomb walls, where a person would go to get judged before Osiris, who is the Jesus of the Gospels type, the pattern, because he's the one who's murdered by his brother, betrayed by a brother, and dies, and the whole temple rituals of the religion are based upon him and his ascension, the death, burial, 3 days in the tomb, resurrecting from the grave, ascends. That's where it all came from, those patterns. And the Egyptian stories are part of where all these stories came from. D.M. Murdoch did not develop it into a theory. She just said, oh, okay, they're plagiarizing Egyptian petroglyphs. And she left it at that, saying, oh, yeah, Christianity's a fraud. They plagiarized. Similar to ex-Mormons with the Book of Mormon. Oh, the Book of Mormon's plagiarized. It's a fraud. And you don't catch on to the patterns that they're specifically talking about. Nor did D.M. Murdoch understand that even though it did not have dragons and serpents and beasts and that type stuff like apocalyptic literature typically has and is classified as such, Gospels are also apocalyptic. And she missed that. I'm the one who caught it. I'm the only one left. So yeah, and so those patterns also help to illustrate that the Jesus of the Roman period did not exist. This Jesus of the Roman period also fails to fulfill the prophecies. Matthew is consistent, saying he did this, And thus was fulfilled by the words of the prophet so-and-so, if he mentions a name, unlike with the birth sign, which was supposed to be the birth sign, but yeah, he's trying to convince Jews that this Jesus of the Roman period is the one they were looking for. Because the Jews are looking for a latter-day Messiah, a Christ. And so Matthew's trying to say, hey, he came, isn't that great? Except when you know that it's not actual Matthew, that it's somebody claiming that it's Matthew, and that he's not writing during that time period of which it claims. There's problems. Because the guy is inconsistent. He doesn't know his audience. The Jews reject the Gospels, Jesus as the Christ. Why? Well, because there's some other prophecies that Matthew misses. The author of Matthew misses. He didn't know his Old Testament very well. Jeremiah chapter 23 talks about a descendant of King David who is to be the latter-day Christ Messiah. And if you do not understand how King David is a Messiah, a Christ, if you impose Christianity as an anachronism into the Jewish religion to disqualify it, you're gonna run into some obstacles, as you're not going to convince the Jews to convert to your created religion. Because Jeremiah then goes on to talk about he will save the Jews. And in the manner in which he's going to save them is a type and shadow of Moses and the Exodus. So now you have to learn about King David and how he's Christ, and about Moses, whom I've already said he's not the author of the books of Moses. And so even though Jeremiah can be traced to 600 BC, the person who actually wrote the Torah is utilizing those other records to compose who they're talking about. So because of Jeremiah, somebody went in and said, oh yeah, this is Moses, this was an Exodus. Because notice the Exodus talks about 3 days of darkness, stars falling from heaven, a coronavirus. Wait a minute, those are last days signs. 3 days of darkness, 3 total solar eclipses over the whole United States, stars falling from heaven. Monson died on one of those days. The one from Revelation chapter 12, verse 3. Sign of the, well, 4 actually. Stars falling from the tail of the dragon, which is Draco, which is the quadranted meteor showers which began when Nelson died on the 2nd of January. They're always during that time period. Sure enough, there they were, the night Monson dies. And so, yeah, the Torah is apocalyptic literature, placed in a historical time period with anachronisms, revealing when the author wrote it. And so, understand that the Jews have certain qualifications and prophecies that are on you can put them on a checklist. That the Jews, if they had a written checklist, would be able to go through the book of Matthew and say, okay, well, yeah, sure enough, that one is fulfilled. That actually came from Isaiah, and so on. But, nope, this one was not fulfilled. You didn't even touch on that subject. That one was not fulfilled. You didn't touch on that. That one was not fulfilled because, no, you did this thing instead. That's how the Jews know that the gospel of Jesus is a fraud. He's not real. He's a made-up story. And so they're not going to be convinced. And if they are convinced, Jews for Jesus, that's because they don't know their Torah. They don't know their scriptures. They don't know their religion. And so they were easily swayed by Christians. And then, of course, the wrong name. Seriously, Jesus? And he fails to fulfill the prophecies of saving the Jews during the Roman period? That was the big thing. Jeremiah says he will save the Jews. Jesus did not save the Jews. The Jews were slaughtered by the Romans. I mean, there are tales of horror about how the Jews just butchered everybody. And so that needs to be understood. Okay. Now, this was all just off the top of my head. If I were to actually have gone through and refreshed my memory, going over the scriptures, I would have had a longer list. But that just came off the top of my head and I jotted them down. Alrighty. Now the Book of Mormon. Yeah, as you've probably already guessed, Jesus didn't come to the Americas. Never happened. If Jesus isn't real, how is he coming to the Americas? I also did the video exposing how Jesus was ascended on the same day as the resurrection, according to the Book of Mormon. But the Gospels Jesus isn't real, therefore the Book of Mormon Jesus isn't real either. So this is the part where Christians are all happy that, the Mormon Jesus is wrong, but I have to take down the Christian Jesus to do it. See, Mormons are okay with taking down the Christian Jesus. Oh, yeah, supernatural. Yeah, our God is physical. He has a body of flesh and bone. But you're claiming he's still the Gospel's Jesus, which I've now exposed. See, do I still have anybody around at 53 minutes, 30 seconds? I doubt it. I'm pretty sure everybody is treating me like Mormons treat me. So if there are still people listening, oh, hey, how you doing? You doing well? I hope you're okay. A lot of bad stuff going on in the world right now, isn't there? Well, everybody thinks they know the truth and demand that we accept their lies. That's the big attack that we are under right now. And that's why this video is so important for everyone, not just for Mormons who don't want to watch this video anyway. So let me continue for those few of you left. The whole concept of Nephi seeing Jesus during the Roman period, no, it didn't happen. The whole condescension of Jesus Christ and being born of Mary and she's white and all that, no. So what is it then? If they know that the Gospel's Jesus is not real, And they do. They know that he's not real. And that's where you have to know about the Smiths' history, about Smith Sr. being involved with the New Israelites in Vermont. Because you see that in the Book of Mormon. You see the Yorkites with the Knights Templar in the Book of Mormon and in Joseph Smith's history. And so what they're doing is using the New Israelite religion with the Knights Templar tradition, combined it together in a code in the Book of Mormon. And I've gone over that as well. So that's just to explain it. But yeah, most ex-Mormons, as you know, just say, oh, plagiarism, yeah, it's not true, therefore the book is a fake, and Joseph's a fraud, blah, 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 I want nothing to do with the church, I'm just going to mock it for the rest of my life. You know, you don't know what the truth is, like I do. And then you get to, well, if Jesus isn't real, then all these other characters are not real either, because it's not a history. So no Nephi, no Moroni, no people in between. Mosiah, Benjamin, Ether, Jaredites. Never happened. Not real. That's why there are so many impossible things, such as glowing rocks in a sealed coffin sailing across America, and yet they somehow had an ability to have a plug cork to get air whenever they do come up for air. Yeah, no, none of that happened. It's all code. To give you a little more information about the New Israelites, they were apocalyptic. They had included Jewish mysticism with their religion, believing that Hebrew was the angelic tongue. And so they were also into astronomy, the holiness to the Lord parchment. If you've ever heard about the Smiths family having that in their possession, yeah, that's not magic, that's astronomy from the New Israelites. That's why he had it. And so when you look at church history in the context of them knowing astronomy, now pay attention to the Book of Mormon. The heavens opened. Uh-oh, we're getting a sign in the heavens. Joseph Smith getting the plates, Knights Templar, on what day? It would be wise to check your stellarium for certain events that take place. Some of them correspond with a sign in the heavens, or they're trying to code for a future sign in the heavens. Notice, Joseph Smith was told to go back to the hill Cumorah for 4 years at the same day. Just one night, and he's instructed on all things about the Book of Mormon. Just once for 4 years. Really? Joseph Smith is that great of a learner? I don't think so. I doubt anybody could be that great of a learner going back only one time. You know, it's like seeing one episode of a show once a year, and then at the end you're writing the whole show yourself. No. So the Moroni, which originally was Nephi, now we have to say, wait a minute, they're changing it to Moroni to correct the information? Are we sure it needed to be corrected in the first place if it wasn't real to begin with? Yeah, it was Nephi. There's a reason why. There's a reason why it's Nephi in the beginning, and Nephi when Jesus comes to America, the fake Jesus. A reason. And Nephi at Jesus is the son of Nephi. Nephi shares the same name as his father, the father as the son. Sound familiar with any other passage in the Book of Mormon? Oh, there'll be a guy named Joseph whose father will also be named Joseph. Yeah. There's patterns. Remember? And it's coded. And so, yes, not only did Nephi not appear to Joseph Smith and say, hey, I've got plates, it's the end of the world coming. Ah, there's the code clue. What is that code? He quotes scripture and alters that scripture. What are the alterations? Are you paying attention? What are the passages? Elijah's coming. When did Elijah come? Oh, that was Peter, James, and John to make Joseph Smith the president of the church. Are we sure that was the presidency? Or was it something else that happened when Elijah came during Passover of the Jews in the Kirtland Temple? See the code? See the pattern? Moses. You see what Joseph was trying to set up. So now go to section 103, verse 16. Yeah, it's not Jesus. It's not a second coming. It's not Christianity. And thus, yeah, John the Baptist, Peter, James, and John, even Elijah and Moses, never happened, but they're trying to code for us. Trying to teach us through this code. That's why nobody can find an actual document of the actual Peter, James, and John visit. It's sort of like an, oh, whoops, let's make sure we talk about that, and that it happened. Alright. So now the modern prophets. If you didn't know, Brigham Young took his branch from Joseph Smith. He came to Salt Lake Valley. That we all know. But there's a big controversy. Brigham Young, in 1852, said Adam is our Heavenly Father. He changed the nature and character of God. When you do that, you are now imposing anachronisms. That's what Brigham Young did by saying Adam is Heavenly Father. Doesn't matter if he says, well, that's the way Joseph believed, I'm just continuing what Joseph believed. No, it's not what Joseph believed. You're anachronisming Joseph Smith. Yeah. A completely different organization. That's why he started polygamy openly in 1852. That's why he blamed Joseph. He purposely set up, framed Joseph Smith for a lot of stuff, not just polygamy. And that needs to be understood. That this whole Brigham thing was a fraud. But it was also criminal. And because it was criminal, when the United States came in, yeah, you guys have to stop. You can't be criminal anymore. And they say, screw you. And so eventually the United States had to exert their muscles and shut the whole Brigham Young organization down. That was with Wilford Woodruff. And it was disincorporated. 1852, Brigham Young Incorporated came out, started polygamy openly, started Adam as Heavenly Father, started a bunch of other stuff, and the United States shut them down with the Edmunds-Tucker Act. They had to specifically design the act to go after the church, because the other laws were not effective enough to shut it down and punish them accordingly. And so the church begrudgingly caved under Wilford Woodruff. And there were Mormons who were upset with him. How dare you? We're the Church of God. The Americans are heathens. We need to fight to the death. Take down America. Insurrection. Remember, Brigham Young fled the country. He didn't form the state of Deseret. It's the kingdom. Brigham Young organized, in Missouri, in Nauvoo, Illinois, he himself organized a counter-government. It was in secret at first, but to avoid going further into a tangent away from the topic, as we're 1 hour and over 6 minutes, let's get back to focusing on how Jesus is not the God of Mormonism, as he's fake. Well, the church reincorporated in 1923. The government was satisfied that the church had learned their lesson and were not going to do it anymore, despite FLDS churches popping up, because they thought that the church had fallen, not being true to Brigham Young and the true doctrine of Mormonism. But under Heber J. Grant, they were approved to reincorporate after the Edmunds-Tucker Act. Decades later, Lorenzo Snow forced tithing as a protection racket, pulled them out of debt, so that when they filed in 1923, they now had $1 million for the church. And they couldn't be Brigham Young's restored religion, because that's what got them disincorporated. They're not allowed to reincorporate as Brigham Young's religion. It was criminal. And so what do? Do they restore Joseph Smith? How do they justify Brigham Young? Yeah. They became evangelical Christian, with Joseph's incorrect information as now actual history. And that is backfired, as the Tanners were the first ones to actually do the research, find original documents, and go, hey, this ain't the way it was originally. And the church was able to, keep Mormons separated from the Tanners for the most part. It was sort of an underground movement that Mormons knew of, the exclusive Mormons, as they still remained Mormons, but they knew that the church had some issues that needed to be dealt with, and were not dealing with them. And then I'm not sure I think the Tanners were after, but 1967 came the Metropolitan Museum of Art finding the Joseph Smith papyri. Gave it to the church because of William Richards, who was the president in England, who came and joined Brigham's branch. Brought with him the facsimiles in the Book of Abraham and the selections from Moses, which became the Pearl of Great Price. And that's the only reason why that church had it. The Brighamite church had it. Brigham wanted nothing to do with it. He didn't want any of that. He only used what he had in order to convince people he's the true successor. So you have to have something of Joseph's. So yeah, the Book of Mormon. But now the Book of Mormon was a true history, and it justified him taking away the priesthood from blacks, even though this is the last days, the restoration of all things, and Brigham Young's taking away things that are supposed to be restored. Yeah, it's because he's not true. He's a fraud. But yeah, the current prophets all are talking about evangelical Christians. But they want Brigham Young's organization resurrected. That's the danger. They're using Christianity as their cover to do it. To resurrect Brigham Young by pushing Christian. So, yeah, I did those videos yesterday, as I've done previous videos exposing it. I got shut down on TWG for exposing the sex slavery and sex trafficking through the temple. It's not the Brigham Young sex slavery and trafficking, but it's still in practice. It's going under the radar of the government. I exposed it, and the church had me shut down on YouTube, on the channel, for those couple of weeks or few weeks or however long it lasted, until I realized, oh, they're letting me post again. Great. But they made sure to punish me in number of views. They restrict that now. And so, yeah, when Nelson gets up and says, oh, Jesus this, Jesus that, we owe everything to Jesus, he's a fraud. What are you talking about? Yeah. Now you can realize what Nelson is actually doing, as he's using Jesus as a cover. They're not talking to Jesus. They're lying to us. It's not Jesus' church. They're lying to us. It's not Jesus' gospel. Jesus didn't restore, or he was supposed to restore, he didn't. But they say that Jesus established his church during the Roman period. No. Then what was the church of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? You know, we keep talking and seeing it repeated over and over again, especially in the Book of Mormon. The God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That's a religious belief and practice. They had an organization. They had converts, according to the more extra scriptures in Mormonism. He converted as Abraham made his journey to Canaan. Any kind of congregation is a church. That's where the definition came from. A congregation of people of the same belief, religious belief system. And what about the origin with Adam? You know, why is Jesus the one establishing religion in the meridian of time? Didn't Adam have a religion? Joseph Smith says he did. And so, yeah, Jesus was supposed to restore religion, not establish it. It's those little technical details that are missed by Mormons. The prophets are frauding us. Now you can see where I'm talking about the crimes with the protection racket of tithing. Jesus doesn't want the money. Oh, you have to pay or you're not worthy for the temple? Really? Wow, worthiness is dependent on your income level, huh? I guess the Book of Mormon is a fraud. The story of the Zoramites. The poor Zoramites. We were cast out because of our poverty. Yeah, if you don't pay your tithing because you're poor, you're cast out of the temples for your poverty. You have to have a job. Otherwise, you're a lazy bum. And the church ain't going to give you assistance. You need to get a job so that you don't get assistance anyway. It's a catch-22 trap that they've purposely set. So, now that I've destroyed everything for you, yeah, you're already coming to realize, if you're still hanging on to this video, if you believe that you're praying to Heavenly Father through Jesus as the mediator, that having a faith in Jesus is going to save you, which God? Kind of important to have the right God. And as I've destroyed the Trinity God, as I've shown that the Jews have strayed from their true religion, assimilated into Babylon religion and government and practice and ritual and all that, and then Constantine, Jews sort of need to be restored too. And Islam, the biggest religion, because Christianity claims to be the biggest, but they're fractured. You've got thousands of different Christian organizations, each one with their own various levels of population of members. So Islam technically is the biggest. But yeah, Mormons, they're pushing lately the spiritual witness over truth. They're truth and science deniers, claiming that they have a spiritual witness, that they now know the answers. And it's causing problems with the church because their spiritual witness contradicts the prophets. And as certain people get very popular in social media, they tend to take Mormons away from the prophets with their Mormon videos that are becoming popular. Oops. And then eventually the prophets come down and shut them down. As Nemo said, his friend is getting excommunicated. They're both Mormon. They promote the church. They just disagree with apologists. And so they think that the church could be better, as they still think it's true. Thus I did the video yesterday also about will changing the church or fixing the church result in a true church? No. That's what Mormons don't get. That's what ex-Mormons don't get. When they get excommunicated, you hear them say, oh, I'm still a Mormon at heart, or, the church, if it just made these changes, I would consider going back to it if they would allow me back in, and blah, blah, blah. But no, guys. The tree's dead. It ain't going to produce any good fruit for you. And the whitewashing, if you're familiar with that, for tombstones, sepulchers, is so convincing to Mormons and ex-Mormons. Nobody looks to find the rot inside. It's just whitewashed. Looks pretty. Looks powerful. Looks successful. And it is for the ways of the world. But again, it's all based on a fraud. And so this is what the church does not want you to know about, and wants me dead, wants me silenced, why they won't excommunicate me. Because that would cause too many backlashing problems for them. that they will not be able to answer to, because they're trying to silence me. If you've noticed, those who they've excommunicated become more popular. Why don't they want me popular? Well, YouTube obviously is going to promote the church on my channels now to make me more popular, right? Yeah, I'm willing to bet there will be no commercials on my channel. Not even the toxic poop guy. Dear God, who allowed him on? So yeah, I don't see it happening, because the toxic poop guy is going to say, no, I don't want my advertising on his channel. I'm pretty sure the advertisers are going to want to pick and choose. But I don't know. Maybe they won't get to pick and choose. Maybe YouTube is going after them too. Nope, we get to choose which advertising goes with which. And so screw you and your desires. We want money now, not you guys. Because yeah, people are going to be pissed if I'm not getting views and they get put on my thing for advertising. Yeah, they're going to be pissed with YouTube. And so yeah, unless YouTube is planning on increasing my views, I don't see anything happening for me. Alrighty. Needed to go back to bed, but I did this video because I was inspired to do it.